Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cuisine, tasty. Their meats are really wonderful. Couscous is part of the palate that they have there. They also export a lot of phosphate, which here in the country we use for fertilizer in the country, as well as you look at their beautiful beaches. It's just 13 kilometers as well to Europe. So they say they have a lot of European influence because they're closer to Spain. But let's go to the proverb today. The heart that loves you won't hurt you. The heart that loves you won't hurt you. How would you interpret that?
The heart that loves you won't
Won't
hurt
hurt
you.
you.
It means the person who loves you would have no intention of hurting you. Basically, the person who has a responsibility to take care of you would not be seen to be doing something that would harm you. That is how I would interpret it.
Yes.
Looking at probably what we are about to discuss, the person who we have given the custody of taking care of us through our vote would assume they would have no interest in hurting us or spending what we have given to them in a manner that does not fit with what we would want.
One would say
Yeah.
from the frying pan straight into the fire.
I like the fact that you use the word intention.
Yes.
Yeah.
That, you don't. If you love somebody, you don't operate with an intention
Yes.
to hurt. You
right.
could hurt,
Yeah.
but you didn't intend to. Well, I think that's interesting
Yeah.
Yeah.
that you used that word. Okay, so in this week we've seen quite a lot in terms of what monies are being used. The one that met with chagrin for a lot of people yesterday was the hospitality budget that comes out of this country on a daily basis. Now, when I hear 17 million shillings, you say, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, especially then when you attach it to food items. And we're not talking about food items. Now, when I say 17.2 million shillings a day, then I want somebody to say, knock me over, because that's a lot of money. Now, maybe that's okay, because people say in order to, you need to entertain, you need to be hospitable, you need to do certain things. But is that okay in the light of the things that are happening in the country, where, we could do the list, and I'm sure we already know what the list looks like. Can't pay capitation. Ministry of Health has told us, I beg your pardon, Ministry of Education has told us why capitation has not been sent is because they are trying to verify all these ghost schools that came out of the woodwork. So once that's verified or unverified, then we can pay. So maybe that's an explanation. But, not enough people paying for SHA, so government doesn't have enough money to pay. Not enough money, so resources cannot fix all the infrastructure in the country. But then you can spend 17 million shillings a day on hospitality. And if we just do quick math, 17... let's go with a 30-day month. That's 510 million shillings a month on food.
That's interesting. When you look at the state of our economy and the state of our expenditure, we are in a serious deficit when it comes to our budget. And services to ordinary citizens, whether it's education, whether it's health, are not at their best. So ordinarily, you would expect that some of these monies, we are spending it in a manner that is going to enhance the livelihoods of Kenyans. When you look at the amount you've just mentioned, 17 million Kenya shillings being spent on hospitality, and compare with what that money could do in terms of capitation for our students. A full capitation for our students would be about 22,000 shillings per year. So if you take 17 million shillings, just a quick math, and divide by 22,000, that would tell you the number of children that will go without capitation just because we chose to spend this money on hospitality. If we decided to pay, say, full SHA contribution to the vulnerable, which would be around 6,000 per person, that would give you the number of people that would be catered for at the SHA. If we decided, let's save half of that and connect as many households to electricity at a total of 15,000 per household, that tells you the number that would benefit at the expense of what we are doing within that hospitality.
At 6,000, you said?
6,000 is for full payment of SHA for the year.
So for 17 million shillings, this is a day.
Yes.
So in 1 day of hospitality, payments here and there, you serve tea, you have lunch, whatever, you could actually pay a full year for Kenyans to the tune of 2,833 people.
That's a day.
In a day. You could pay for 2,833 people in 1 day.
So times 30.
Yikes.
Times
so
12. That would give you the number of citizens that you could pay for.
It's necessary for us to do that if you don't mind.
It is.
What did I say? 2,833 people.
Yes. So you've divided 17 million by 6,000.
By 6,000. Yeah.
Yes.
2,833 people.
Yes.
Right?
So
833 times
30 an ordinary month, then times 12, that is a year.
Times 12.
So
we would actually be able to foot the bill for 1,019,880 Kenyans
precisely.
in 1 month of
That's 1 year.
in 1 year
Yes.
of this hospitality feeding people.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
1 million Kenyans could get.
That is just one example of what you would do.
Okay.
You could also decide that because we have these state banquets and other things that are necessary, let's then go with what has been proposed before by the president. Let us cut some of these expenditures by 50%. So if we were to do that, then we would still save enough to pay for over 500,000
people. Okay.
which is still a pretty good number of
yes.
people that would be helped with something that is more sustainable, and it would ensure that they get health services, assuming then SHA would be working, because there is also an assumption that SHA would be working.
Yeah.
But looking at another example that would be more useful, look at capitation, for instance, for students, because this goes straight to a student. Maybe we can divide the same. We can do the same math.
So 17.2 million shillings. This is in a day.
Yes.
Let's say in a day we divide by 22,244 shillings. We would then be able to send for a year. We would be able to send one student for a year from term 1 to 3, January until October. 773 students would go to school. We would not worry about that. We would not even have to retain the 5,000 shillings that's held by the Ministry of Education for infrastructure and blah, blah, blah.
That is in a day.
Now,
That's in a day.
that's a day.
All right? Now, if we did this times 30.
Times 30.
Okay.
Times 12.
Then we multiply by 12. We would then be able to send a quarter of the. Let me not even do that. We would then be able to send 278,367 students to school.
Exactly.
We would pay capitation.
Now, let us again assume we still need the hospitality. We are entertaining guests, so we cut that by 50%.
Yes.
I'm using a number that has been proposed by the president himself. Then we are talking about over 100,000 students would go to school without paying a thing. So this is the cost of the priorities that we have taken. And now, to make matters worse, this comes at the backdrop of a situation where we are borrowing heavily, domestically and externally, but more heavily domestically, which is actually crowding out the domestic investors because they cannot access credit. So when you compare these two, we are spending money on consumption, and we've not even touched the bigger animals around here, because if you look at domestic travel and foreign travel, that would be another big area. If you look at something called other operating expenses, that's another bigger area. We're just focusing on hospitality. But that is why we've been saying as Okoa Uchumi, Kenya does not have a revenue problem. What we have is an expenditure problem. And I think I had the other day, some of our political class have started admitting that we have an expenditure problem, not a revenue one.
Okay. Stella Agarra is here. She's a governance and security expert. She joins us, analyst, and she joins us this morning. Good morning, Stella.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You made it.
I made it.
Yes.
I did.
Karibu sana.
Thank you.
We are looking into how things are working in the country at the moment. We've done some math. It's been some fun stuff already. And Alexander just walking us through and said, okay, fine, even if we kept things in terms of expenditure at 50%. And this, by the way, we've not gone into other areas around, what's happening with ghosts. Because there seem to be ghosts, whether you're looking into the medical sector or whether you're looking into the education sector, there are ghosts. The president has, pronounced himself on some of these things. Just this last week, we're just looking at the expenditure for hospitality. We're not even looking at the expenditure for domestic travel. We're not looking at the expenditure for foreign travel. We're not looking at expenditure on allowances and other personal emoluments. We're not looking at any of that. This is just this one that hit us in the face like a ton of bricks yesterday. And we're saying that it is possible to even cut these things by 50%, and we would see a significant number of the things that are crying out in society today then having been catered for. Children could go to school. Medical bills for people in a universal healthcare coverage arena could be paid. We will probably see some infrastructure development. Are we allowed to make such comparisons? Can we say, well, you know what, if you cut a little bit over here, we can do this? Should we be allowed to make such a kind of an analysis?
As a matter of fact, we should. For a country that does not have the resources it requires to serve its people, we must prioritize, and the decisions must be made in a manner that then prioritizes those needs that cover the most of the population. So for a country that is struggling economically, we shouldn't be prioritizing entertainment, especially for meetings that do not result in funds for the nation. We should be prioritizing entertainment and luxury when we are already getting our basic needs. Are all the children in the country getting basic education? Are all the young people in the country getting secondary education, for example? And then can we say that we are subsidizing tertiary education? Can we talk about the fact that everybody in this country is receiving universal health care? And if not, is it subsidized for the very needy people in our society? Until we have those conversations, it is not okay for us to talk about the high spending that this country has consistently had on flowers, on samosas, on funny items that don't necessarily have to be spent on. And now the figures are appalling. I'm not sure we want to be having conversations about that when you have people in this country sleeping hungry, when you have people in this country saying they can't afford healthcare, when you have people in this country saying that they can't even access the marketplace. They are producing, but they cannot access the marketplace. We have a fundamental problem, because those who then begin to access the marketplace and they're producing maybe are going to improve the revenue in this country. If we are not sustaining that, then we are not bringing money into the pockets of the people. We are not promoting spending, and therefore we are not going to be able to have resources for services. A government is as good as the services they offer to their people. If they're not able to offer their services, then maybe they are saying that they're not competent enough to be holding those positions.
Stella, I remember a while back, especially during the time when President William Ruto was invited to the White House, a red carpet, 200 million shillings jet, and everything that went about that. And I remember at the time the Cabinet Secretary, Foreign Affairs, by then was Alfred Mutua, and he said, we need to spend this money for us to be able to generate more. For us to strike all these deals and whatnot, money has to be spent. But like you've rightfully said, we see the expenditure, but we see no result. But this has continued to happen over time, because the president will also wake up and say, kutoka leo mambo ya harambee tumekata. We have to live within our means. We have to tighten our belts. But you see the renovation of State House. One asks, is that necessary? The construction of the church that now there's a court order stopping that. Is it necessary when healthcare is not working, education is not working, cost of doing business is high, education funding model is a problem? But is it that they do not know? Is it that we do not know? Or it's just a question of we don't care?
If you ask me, I'm convinced that they don't care. I'm highly convinced that they don't care. Look here, most of these trips, forget about just the US one, all of the trips have oversubscriptions of people going for the trips. I have looked at lists of people going for, climate conferences, is it some meeting in China or wherever it is, even if the negotiations and funding is coming. You do not need the size of delegations that we normally send. How many mouths are going to be negotiating on behalf of the country for whatever deal it is that they're going to collect? In the US, for example, we saw all kinds of displays of pictures taken in Hollywood and elsewhere. I'm yet to see what that has translated to for Riverwood. Do we still have Riverwood in Kenya even in the first place? We saw images taken there, and certain decisions were made at the time. In fact, there have been reversals, for example, of our non-NATO representation. So, for me, I think they have made a decision that they're going to eat from whatever opportunity that is available to them. If it is travel, let us collect per diems as much as possible. If it is locally, whatever we have to do to ensure that the money is in our hands. Are you going to reduce capitation or cancel it completely so that you have money to do empowerment? They have made a decision that's what they are going to do. We know that empowerment program is not working. It does not even take a rocket scientist to understand that it's not working. They have definitely decided that they want the money to be in their pockets and they don't care what Kenyans are going through. The last thing I'm going to say on this is the fact that as a country, and I agree with my colleague that we collect sufficient revenue. And the truth is there is enough to eat and still deliver to the people. I mean, assuming that we said we have accepted our thugs in government, let's just allow them to eat. There is enough to eat and still deliver services to the people. The problem is that we have individuals in our government who lack conscience. They have made decisions that they're going to eat the road, eat the pavement, and even eat the person who was supposed to use the road. It is extremely, extremely disappointing that we have human beings today who do not care about fellow human beings running our government, and therefore they don't care what damage is caused. The cost of corruption, the cost of wastefulness is tragic to some people in this nation because people die without accessing health services. It is tragic to the future of this nation because we are supposed to be educating young people so that they can be leaders of tomorrow, they can be the businessmen of tomorrow, they can be the ones running our industries. If the quality of education is compromised, if they're constantly out of school because they cannot afford school fees, a time is coming when you're going to pay the price, and there's no escaping. We will pay a dear price, and we must start making a decision on how we will hold this government accountable for the little time that they have left over in government as we wait for a time when we'll have a more responsive government.
Can we link directly, Alexander, to say that, we've done the math, and, many could say that we're being, rudimentary or basic in our thinking. But if we look at a situation whereby 100 million shillings that can be used on something that is not bringing any kind of benefits, then it cannot be explained that you see there is a dent somewhere else. To me, you can actually draw the line and connect and say, look, this is not bringing anything. And on this side, we see that 1,000 children could be sent to school. The reality on the ground today is that there are schools, and this is not a fairy tale, that there are schools that are sending children back home because they are yet to receive capitation. Julius Ogamba, who is the CS for Education, said very clearly yesterday that what they're trying to do is exorcise the ghosts. I don't know.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Deals kibao kila wiki na Carrefour. Enjoy fresh chicken whole at 398 shillings per kg. Tangerine import at 259 shillings per kg. Sungold Light sunflower oil 5 liters at 1,145 shillings. And LG 55-inch TV at 67,995 shillings. Deals kibao kila wiki na Carrefour.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Capitation for third term of 4,449 shillings. Ask me how I know these numbers off it. Has not been paid at all for term 3. We are going into the third week of term 3 on Monday. So if that can be used as reasoning, these ghost schools did not start in the Ruto administration. This non-payment of capitation did not start in the William Ruto administration. There's 64 billion shillings that was already due in capitation before Ruto lifted the Bible. So it is a perennial issue. Can we say that we're not sending money because of this? And this overspending on things did not start with this administration, unfortunately. But we are seeing that there is an exacerbation of the situation. Can we not say, hang on, hard stop, pull the red, what is that thing that in the train where they pull it and everything comes to a stop? Can we pull that thing and say stop? But can we do that if we don't care about what 50 million Kenyans have to go through on a daily basis?
You started a very good point. The person we expect to pull that red thing you're talking about sits in the house on the hill. But now looking at the report by the Control of Budget, you'll find that out of the 17 million we are talking about 3 point something million is spent. Almost 3.2 million is spent in State House every day on hospitality. So this is the person we expect that is supposed to pull the plug on our behalf. That is where the challenges start. And when I look at it now from the global perspective in terms of our fiscal situation, you find that in that same year, it's a year where we had to borrow heavily to finance our expenditure. The report is a big report, but part of it gives you the analysis of how much we borrowed. Especially we borrowed in excess of 1 trillion shillings domestically. This has added into our debt stock that is currently now oscillating at around 11.8 trillion. So when you look at now, and I come back to my colleague, you look at now where we are borrowing to actually consume.
To live.
We are borrowing for
survive.
recurrent. And this is against our own provisions in the PFM Act and our Constitution. To make matters worse, there is this now very famous article, and I have seen the heading of the bold newspaper today. And I came with my Constitution. Article 223 is the drafters of the Constitution envisaged a situation where you would have challenges, where maybe Parliament is not there, an emergency has occurred, and you need money that is not appropriated. And it provided for the withdrawal awaiting appropriation. But now, when I looked at the budget, even you compare this year's budget and last year's budget, you will see that some of these areas were actually financed through Article 223 approvals. And that is provided in the Control of Budgets report. Now, you ask yourself, is this hospitality business, is it an emergency? Was it unforeseen? And was it unavoidable? Because those are the conditions that are provided for those withdrawals. It has to be an emergency, unforeseen, and unavoidable. So when we look at now this report in totality, and then compare what we are losing by the sort of expenditures we are having in terms of what our children are losing, our vulnerable people in the society, then we are left wondering whether the proverb we started with from Morocco, whether the person who loves me actually is not hurting me. And we come back to the intention we talked about.
Yeah. So I wanted to look at the government, the way it operates, right? So you realize the 64 billion shillings on education funds from the previous government, but the institutions remained the same. So we talk about EACC in terms of doing investigations, talk about DCI, talk about the ODPP, talk about the ministry itself. Individuals might change, but the government of Kenya remains. All these ministries remain. And one would ask the question, if the education ministry failed to release the capitation, or the treasury failed to release the capitation, and the problems that we now envisage today, who slept on the job? And if one would come and say, hizi shida zi kwanza na mimi, ilikuwa ile serikali nyingine, ulizeni wao. Why are we not seeing heads roll in terms of finding those who are culpable of the misdeeds that were done to the people of Kenya and ensure that justice is done? Or is it a question of government, politicians protecting themselves because they know we'll still do the same thing?
Dennis, this is why I say with a lot of conviction that they actually don't care. Because they know exactly who is responsible for making things happen and they don't do it. Number two, when the next government, and I don't know why we are obsessed with our egos, that when a new government comes in, they don't want to take responsibility for what was not done.
Yes.
What we don't, for example, acknowledge when we are transitioning governments in Kenya is that whatever is left over from the previous regime is your assignment.
Is your responsibility.
That if you decide you're not going to finish the road that was being constructed by the previous government, then that road is going to be hanging as a failure on your part. That is one of the things that you don't recognize. If the previous government left a debt of capitation to schools, you have the obligation of making sure that you pay, because if you don't pay, it basically means those institutions will close their gates at some point. I think we have egos that are probably too inflated. People don't actually care whether or not they're going to serve the people and whether they're going to make sure that they do what they need to do. The other thing is that some of the institutions that are required to be playing the role of fighting corruption in this country have really been compromised. They have really been compromised. Majority are either underfunded. They run their functions with direct influence from other quarters, including the executive. And so even when they have the means, they have the evidence, and they're able to deal with these situations, they don't get to deal with them. Now, I don't know if you'd report a whole government refusing to pay institutions what they should pay them, or even to transfer to the county what is supposed to be transferred to the county. I don't know if you'd call that corruption. In it, there's corruption. But then government, it's always assumed that government will pay. That's the thing.
Yes.
So whatever is a government debt will eventually be paid when someone who has some level of sanity takes over that position, or when the resources become available. So the government also takes advantage of the fact that everybody knows that they are bankable. So you keep this for very long, punish the institutions, punish the students, punish the people who are supposed to be benefiting from these resources on the ground, knowing very well that most people will not be able to come back to you and ask you, where is this money? I think the other thing is that because of the nuances, the state has come to a place where they think that citizens do not understand what those monies mean. For a long time, because they're talking in millions and billions, they think Kenyans will take forever to understand. Yes. But the truth is, Kenyans don't need to understand the zeros. Kenyans just need to feel how painful the belt is getting as it's being tightened every day.
Yeah. And Stella, can I interject and ask you, do you think that there is an understanding, linear or otherwise, that when because look, the headlines are all over the place. This information is public, but that, in fact, by law, it must be made public. And then it starts to spread by wildfire. I'm telling you, everybody by the end of yesterday knew that wanakula mandazi ya 17 million uko. That is the narrative. But do people make a connection between the real situation that I talked about, where children are being turned back home? Do people make a connection between these monies that are being spent, and it looks like a lot of money, which it is, and that child who is being turned back home, or that woman who dies in hospital because there is no doctor to treat her because the doctors are on strike because they've not been paid? Are we making the connections between those things?
The people who desperately need these services make the connection. As a matter of fact, every time they hear you talking about 19 million being deposited to a ghost hospital, they actually make a connection. Anybody who was a patient in hospital today in Kenya makes, the moment you mention 19 million and someone has 1.6 million to pay in a hospital, they make a connection. The people who don't make a connection are the consumers. The corrupt people who are feeding from the messed up system that we have that continues to take away what is supposed to go into public service. They never make a connection. As a matter of fact, they get to the end of their day and fall asleep without trouble. And for me, that is where our problems start. It starts from the lack of conscience in these people, and then it moves on to the fact that entire government systems conspire to protect that lack of conscience and get to a place where an entire government is running without conscience, serving people that they don't deliver services to, and they consistently open their mouths to make promises, saying that we are going to strike, we are going to do whatever. You say you're going to strike today, tomorrow we see you working again and collaborating with people who continue to eat from the public coffers and prevent citizens from getting what they should get. It is really a huge integrity problem, and the institutions that are supposed to be dealing with the corruption themselves are not even available to do the corruption because they've been compromised. Where they have strength to deal with the corruption, sometimes they are underfunded. And we have watched this happening for so long that it's becoming the norm. I think we need to become uncomfortable with this and make it unbearable for governments to continue functioning the way they do.
And you see, at the heart of that is the constitutionality of the country. Yeah. And why do I bring up this question? Because remember, there is this matter of CDF that has been there. And why do I bring especially the matter of CDF? Because it has also been raised by one Edwin. Because you look at, we have CDF, right? We have all these other funds, the President's Fund. We have all these bursaries that are being given by everyone. And the court has pronounced itself on matters to do with CDF. It is unconstitutional, but everyone is fighting to maintain this and ensure that it's still part of their political wildcard whenever they go back to seek for election. But Kenyans are saying, take it away from these people so that, one, they would legislate, they would oversight, and they would represent. They have no business implementing what is ordinarily a county's job or an executive function. And as you look at it in hindsight, is as if tokenism is the way of life. You know, we need these funds so that in a county, I can give 3,000 shillings as bursary as my ticket for re-election. At the end of the day, I will not bother asking questions why EACC is not performing, why the president spent 200 million on a jet, why ABCD happened. Is that the case? That everyone will do everything? Kuficha kitita.
Yeah, you bring a very interesting topic. Just to take you back a bit, TISA is the one that actually has been pushing the CDF case. We are the one who got those orders, and we expect CDF to shut down by June 30th next year. Now, the question that the High Court and the Supreme Court and the people of Kenya wanted to know is this constitution here gives only 3 responsibilities to members of parliament, as you have highlighted. And their responsibility is representation, legislation, and oversight. How do you oversight when you're also involved in implementation in whatever manner? Whether you are a patron or whether you are whatever it is you are. You are supposed to be off implementation completely for you to do oversight. And now the problem that we see is given that this, if you may not be aware, CDF is appropriated under the State Department for Economic Planning. So it is under a State Department. Then it goes to a board. So technically, the budget that comes to Parliament that has CDF is proposed by the executive. And all the processes of releasing the money is an executive function. Meaning, if the executive feels that the members of Parliament, for whatever reason, are not playing ball, they can withdraw the inyonga the mfereji, as Kenyans put it. So this makes it difficult for these members of Parliament to hold the executive to account, because they know these people can come back and hold them when it comes to CDF. So that is why we ought to adhere with the constitution that we gave to ourselves. And we all keep on mentioning Article 1. And the Article 1 gives all sovereign power to ourselves, the citizens. And therefore, if we are of the view that this is the law that has been given to the executive, this is the law that has been given to the legislature, and this is the law that has been given to the judiciary, they should be held to account to that. So that we ensure that our members of Parliament also don't find themselves vulnerable to the trappings of the executive. And that is the problem we are having currently. And coming back to the question that Du had asked, I don't think those who are in authority actually connect the spending that is happening in the manners that we are seeing and the suffering of the people. Because if they did, we wouldn't be seeing them moving around, doing this empowerment thing, while students have less capitation. We wouldn't be seeing the sort of expenditures we are seeing in hospitality, for instance, if we have what we call indigents, or people who cannot afford, not managing to pay for SHA. They would be worried when we hear that there's some money that was paid from SHA to a hospital that does not exist. While hospitals that exist and actually treated people have not been paid.
You would feel some kind of shame.
Yeah.
Would you not, Stella?
Absolutely shame. But then also, apart from shame, you'd feel some kind of guilt and responsibility. They don't feel it. But I want to weigh in on this conversation on tokenism and constitutionalism. We had a country that survived on people getting services if they support the government of the day. Our constitution was particularly created to address that specific problem. And that is why in our new constitution, power was again reestablished in the people, and then the resources were sent back to the people. When you see the kind of consolidation happening, that we would rather not send capitation to the schools, but give CDF what they need to be given to give bursaries. And then bursaries will be given based on who supports the sitting MP. You know, when you see resources being contained at the center and empowerment being done, and the people who are being called to meetings are the people who are on a speed dial of a mobilizer of a political party, we are actually going back and clawing back on the gains that have already been made by this constitution. It is unacceptable to bring a country that has a constitution that makes provision, the spirit of which is to distribute resources that belong to the people back to the people so that they can receive services, and put those resources in the hands of a few so that these people can dictate when, how, and how loud, they will distribute those resources, and how loud the women and youth, who are always the audience of these resources, will sing to just get the money out of their pockets. It is indignity of the highest order. It is disrespectful to the citizens of this nation who pay taxes every day. But most importantly, it's even illegal for us to live in a country where we are doing these kinds of things, because this is a country that actually has signed and is party to the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. We cannot have our citizens begging for services when a nation is collecting taxes.
And then would ask, then what do we do? Because, there's the accusation of lamentation over and over again, but then there's also the call for solutions. And we know that there are those who are clamoring, whether it's private citizen petitions or whether it is barazas of people who come together to have conversations around these things. Because, again, another thing that a conversation does is that it removes the cover of hiding. You remove the cover. That let's have these conversations in the open so that everybody is aware of these things that are happening, and you cannot hide them, because that's usually where these things thrive, in the hidden. So there are people who have taken petitions to court. This one of NGCDF being one of them. There have been private citizens who have taken up these matters, whether it's around human rights, whether it's around this education thing, whether it's around what you can or cannot do once you're a public or state official. These things happen, but are we clawing back? Are we actually moving? If we are dealing with arms of government, look across board, whether you're looking at the executive, whether you're looking at the legislature, whether you're looking at the judiciary, it doesn't matter where you look, that there are those who are protecting these dens of this impunity that we talk about. So whether you go to court, whether you go to parliament, whether you talk to who, it's like we're just oscillating in the same spot, and it's a little bit discouraging. So, but then we're also told that there is hope. What do you do? What is the solution? And people often, we've been told in the last couple of days, go out and register. There is a 14 million strong vote that could come from people who want to change the things of governance in this country at the next election, and that's who's being wooed and romanticized at the moment. Right? Is that enough to vote on election day? Is that enough?
Voting is extremely important, and I would encourage especially our young people to register once that opportunity has been announced. They should register, and not only register but vote. But beyond voting, who are you voting for? Are you voting out of euphoria, or are you voting for somebody who will come and make real change? That is important. But you also ask a very important question. We've seen since 2023 and 2024 an awakening of the citizen, and even this year, where citizens themselves are saying, we can see what is happening, and my colleague did allude to that. Now, it is no longer a secret that Kenyans know what these numbers are and what they mean. And they are doing their own analysis of what these numbers mean. But beyond that, we need to go beyond that and ensure that whenever the opportunities to contribute to the discourse of coming up with our budget, we also participate. On the 25th of last month, there was the launch of the budget process for the coming fiscal year. We should participate actively because Article 10, Article 201, as read together with Section 35 of the PFM Act, provides room for our citizens to participate in the budget making process. That is where we start making contributions and making changes to these sort of proposals that we are seeing going through to Parliament. And beyond that, we need also to petition our members of Parliament and tell them we've seen this proposal coming to increase, domestic travel from X to Y. We are not in agreement. Why don't you appropriate X amount to hospitals, for instance, or to education? So that is the sort of a thing that we need to do as citizens, because this cannot be left to the civil society organization and to the media only. And if you've seen what has been happening, the civic space is now shrinking. Because now anybody who speaks in the manner that we are speaking here with my colleague, you are not even sure whether you will get to your next destination.
Persona non grata.
Yes, so those are the challenges that we are having, which is not good.
You raised something very critical, that these ought to be citizen-led. You know, when you sit and talk about countries like Switzerland and how everything is citizen-involved, you know, a bill, anything.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Deals kibao kila wiki na Carrefour. Enjoy fresh chicken whole at 398 shillings per kg. Tangerine import at 259 shillings per kg. Sungold Light sunflower oil 5 liters at 1,145 shillings. And LG 55-inch TV at 67,995 shillings. Deals kibao kila wiki na Carrefour.
Home Uninterrupted, brought to you by Safaricom. Feels good to be home. Enjoy 25% off on your home internet connection. For the bronze package, get speeds of 15 Mbps at only 2,250 shillings, down from 2,999 shillings. For the silver package, enjoy 30 Mbps for just 3,075 shillings, down from 4,100 shillings. For the gold package, enjoy 80 Mbps for 4,725 shillings, down from 6,299 shillings. For the diamond package, get ultra-fast speeds of 500 Mbps for only 9,375 shillings, down from 12,499 shillings. Visit My Safaricom app or dial *400# to get connected. Offer valid for new customers from 1st to 30th of September 2025. Home Uninterrupted, brought to you by Safaricom. Feels good to be home.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
To do what it needs to do before they accept those resources. We have seen that our National Assembly is complicit. When they want to do favors, when they are promised certain favors, then they comply. It is the responsibility of the citizens to put pressure, and I mean extreme pressure, on every duty bearer who's responsible for the situation we find ourselves in today. Not just put pressure when they're in office, but also put pressure at the time of voting. I'm happy my colleague has mentioned that they should register and come out to vote, and mention that who they're going to vote for. But even as you're voting for who, check. The exasperation comes from the fact that one, these people ignore court summons sometimes, ignore court rulings sometimes. They decide to go for empowerment and ask Mutadu, even as we tell them we don't want it. The opportunity presents itself at the time of voting to send home anybody who has said Mutadu. Right now, the music we are playing is almost like we are ready to recycle some of those people who have ignored court rulings. We are ready to ignore some of those people who have actually broken the law as they were serving the nation of Kenya. One of the things we must do during the campaign period is to remind them consistently that you did this and we shall not allow it. Thank God, Gen Z are the kind of people who will not let you go to sleep without remembering that you did 1, 2, 3 things. We cannot afford as a nation to suffer from amnesia. Number 3, this constitution is the only thing that we have I have said in this studio severally, and I'm going to repeat it today. As long as we have responsible governments in power, let us not allow them to change this constitution. Let us not allow them to even create more offices so that they can increase the wage bill. Let us ensure that we refuse every process to try and amend this constitution until we have a responsible government in power. The last thing that we must do is constantly keep ourselves informed. And once we are informed, take advantage of the opportunities available to demand accountability. Now, there's normally question time, both in the county assembly and the National Assembly, where you can query some of the expenditure. You can petition a member of parliament to ask questions or demand accountability, either from the executive or from any other quarters about the spending of resources. Citizens in Kenya don't take advantage of that as much. I'm glad you mentioned Switzerland. I've seen England, I've seen Denmark, Germany, where citizens will actually write a question, put it in the MP's pigeonhole, and that question will be asked on the floor of the House. Can we, as Kenyans, start taking advantage of those? I know the representatives in Kenya, MPs, CECs, are taking advantage of that, but they're doing it as an instrument of shake-up. So if I notice that you're building on a road reserve, I then go and ask a question in the House, so that you start panicking about the question that I've asked. And then, of course, it is used to collect a bribe.
Of course, it is for me. It's for me.
It's for me. We must now get the citizens to begin using those, because a citizen will not collect a bribe until this road is removed. If the Kilimani residents were given an opportunity to ask questions about the high rises, they would never have settled until that matter would have been addressed. But because it was being asked by an individual who feeds his stomach, then of course the high rises have continued, and now Kilimani is in a situation we cannot handle.
Indeed.
So let these actions be taken by citizens, and let citizens also be aware that they actually have power to do this, and they don't need to get permission from anybody to write to their MP, to write to their MCA and demand that these things happen. If you go alone, especially for the level of the MCAs, there are times when you could be targeted. So there's power in numbers. Citizens need to organize. They need to organize and make sure that when they're asking these questions, they're asking as a group, and that the pressure is felt. What the language that government understands, the language that politicians understand is numbers. So the moment they feel the pressure on the ground, they will act.
And there you go. And that's why we can't have these conversations hidden. They must be out in the open, and that's why we talk about them today. Citizen-led governance is one thing that we need to practice more. Alexander Revi is the head of programs at the Institute for Social Accountability, TISA, and governance and security analyst Stella Agara have been our guest this morning. Thank you for being here to push these conversations. We can't stay silent. It's 9:01. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room.